Good, good morning, everyone, and welcome to UCast. First off, I want to start by saying yesterday had its high points and its low points. I want to apologize sincerely for those of you who wanted to watch online. It wasn't posted until very late last night. We learned a lot yesterday. Unfortunately, it was at the expense of those who wanted to watch online. So we sincerely apologize. We have a lot of things that we know we need to do better, and we're going to work really hard this week to make sure that does not happen again. So hopefully next week we'll have it posted at 10:45 for you guys all to watch and enjoy worshiping with us. Those that were able to come yesterday, or those that were curious, it did go well. It was great to be in the presence of others. We had outside seating, we had kids worship seating, just for that extra overflow. As well as the sanctuary. So it was a good day, but for all except for trying to upload the videos. So that was a rough patch yesterday. But anyway, today we are in Mark 15. So if you want to read along with me or just listen to my voice, I apologize for that. But here we go, Mark 15. Very early in the morning, the chief priests with the elders, the teachers of the law, and the whole Sanhedrin reached a decision. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. "Are you the king of the Jews?" asked Pilate. "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus replied. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again, Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of?" But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed. Now it was the custom of the feast to release a prisoner whom the people requested. A man called Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionists who had committed murder in the uprising. The crowd came up and asked Pilate to do for them what he usually did. "Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" asked Pilate, knowing it was out of envy that the chief priests had handed Jesus over to him. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have Pilate release Barabbas instead. "What shall I do then with the one you call the king of the Jews?" Pilate asked. "Crucify him," they shouted. "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers led Jesus away into the palace, that is the praetorium, and called together the whole company of soldiers. They put a purple robe on him, then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they began to call out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Again and again they struck him on the head with a staff and spit on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him, dividing up his clothes, and they cast lots to see what each would get. It was the third hour when they crucified him. The written notice of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." They crucified two robbers with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "So, you are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days? Come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him among themselves. He saved others, they said, but he can't save himself. "Let this Christ, the King of Israel, come down from the cross, that we may see and believe." Those crucified with him also heaped insults on him. At the 6th hour, darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing near heard this, they said, "Listen, he's calling Elijah." One man ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down," he said. With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. The curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, And when the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus heard this cry and saw how he died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Some women were watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the younger, and of Joses, and Salome. In Galilee, these women had followed him and cared for his needs. Many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem were also there. It was preparation day, that is, the day before the Sabbath. So as evening approached, Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent member of the council, who was himself waiting for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Pilate was surprised to hear that he was already dead. Summoning the centurion, he asked him if Jesus had already died. When he learned from the centurion that it was so, he gave the body to Joseph. So Joseph bought some linen cloth, took down the body, wrapped it in linen, and placed it in a tomb cut out of the rock. Then he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Joses saw where he was laid. This is a tough chapter because there's so much going on that means so much to us. Usually we read these things around Easter and we get excited about the resurrection. It's kind of, this part gets, kind of, there's Good Friday and we take a minute to mourn, but it's usually only a minute, right? We talk about this, we read it, we have communion, and then we get ready for Easter. We get ready for the celebration. And so kind of stopping here, we just have another opportunity to take a minute and realize, even from the beginning, where even before this, leading up to all this, but here at the beginning of this chapter, Jesus before Pilate, I just think the whole picture is just makes no sense, but that's the beauty of what God does for us. It doesn't make sense. We are these creatures that were created that continually seek out rebellion against God, and yet he still loves us. He still cares for us. And if nothing else, that doesn't make sense, let alone the way the world works, where you look around and there's, all the bad things that people do, but they're still rewarded for, all the good things people do that they're hurt for. Just this world is hard at times, and no matter what we're trying to do to get ahead, it just seems, it doesn't always work. And I think for me, doing these readings, that has shown itself time and time again, and to the point now where we're actually seeing what Jesus did. And the chief priest asked him, so Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer or see how many things they're accusing of?" But Jesus made no reply. And by no means am I an expert, but I've heard some things that in Roman law at the time, that was kind of how their lawyers worked. If you didn't have an answer, if somebody could walk up to me and they could accuse me of, hey, you stole my shoe, and I don't say anything, I'm pronounced guilty. Like, if I don't have a defense of that, but clearly I can say your shoe's on your foot, and then all right, I'm free. But for them to come up and make these charges against Jesus, but for him not to have a denial of them, is kind of saying I'm guilty. It's kind of the way that worked for them. And so for him to humbly let those things happen to him for our sake, just to me means a lot, and to me shows just how he trusted God's plan, because it doesn't make sense. If it was me, if it was probably most of us, if somebody comes up and accuses us of something and we are going to be put to death, we are probably going to defend ourselves. But he just goes, all right, God, it is in your hands. I trust you. I understand the big picture. I understand that me dying like this is for the good of the world, past, current, and future, all that Jesus is. And that is Yeah, if you've never done any of those walk to the cross things, it's an interesting thing. I have trouble because I don't do well with like the role play thing. So like in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. But if you actually are able to let yourself into the role play and put yourself in the position of thinking through what Jesus was going through, what the mockers were going through, the people yelling at him, as he's being dragged to the hill, and you think just a couple days earlier, the triumphal entry, right? They're throwing palm branches down, Hosanna in the highest, and then it's a complete flip. Just a few days later, and that's interesting. But also in this, again, I am no theology expert, but all the little things that went on that have prophecies about them. If you ever want to really dive into stuff, everything from the way he died, the way the soldiers mocked him, the wine mixed with myrrh, all those things have throwbacks to, or not throwbacks, Easter eggs, but fulfilled prophecies. They were talked about in the Old Testament, and in just little ways that you don't read the Old Testament and go, oh yeah, Jesus is going to come and this is going to happen to him, and the soldiers are going to cast lots for his clothes. Yeah, that's obviously what this prophecy says. But then once it happened, hindsight, we can look back and see all those things that did happen. So it's just amazing to see that, and and the Joseph of Arimathea, he's one of those people that, the unsung heroes, if you want. Just the boldness that this predominant member of the council, goes against everybody and says, hey, I'm going to go take care of Jesus. I'm going to go bury his body. And so someone with that standing to go against the rest of the council is pretty interesting and awesome to me. Just his boldness to do what is right in the face of all the things that are going on around. So thanks for tuning in. That's all I have for today. We'll be back later this week. But yeah, again, sorry for yesterday. For those who missed out, hopefully next week you'll be able to see everything going on, as well as hopefully it'll be a much better quality video next week. So all right, thank you guys. Have a good day. Bye.